Well, welcome to today's webinar titled Improving Fundraising Performance in Healthcare. I'm Doug Cogswell. I'm the President and CEO of Advisor Solutions, and we are a software company that has done quite a bit of work in using data to help fundraisers in a variety of sectors improve their performance. And today we're going to talk about the key kind of value proposition we bring to the table, which we call the cycle of pain. And what we often see with fundraisers is there's a need to get at the data, to slice and dice it, to cut it in different ways, to create sub-lists, to really try to mine it to understand what's going on. And the source systems, the Razor's Edges, the Salesforce.coms, the Agilons, and so forth are not particularly aligned for that. They're good at getting the data in. They've got some good reporting tools, but they're really not aimed at this kind of ad hoc discovery. So what happens is the cycle of pain shows itself in typically two ways. Custom report requests, where researchers or advancement services professionals need a list of people who are in the northwest suburbs who went to a benefit dinner but then haven't been followed up with and made another gift. You go to IT, some list comes back a week or two later. It might have, you're looking for a list of 100, the list comes back with 10. You have to change your criteria because the list wasn't big enough, and it's just sort of this painful cycle back and forth. But the other form of the cycle of pain is extracts are downloaded from the source systems into Excel or Access, and usually you get a table, but the data is in multiple tables. It's hard to do this. It's hard to show management, and you end up with this what we call a shadow data system, which is it just lives on because it's hard to get in the first place, so it doesn't get updated. The challenge here is the data is fragmented and often hard to access. A Razor's Edge typical table or database will have quite a number of tables, as will the other source systems. There'll be multiple tables on the demographics, the list of the donors or the prospects, the addresses, affinity capacity, ratings may be in separate tables. Different event participation are going to be in different tables typically, and there's usually a series of different giving tables, online transactions, traditional transactions, pledges, and so forth. So what we do effectively is we take this data from the source system and we knit it together. Technically, we do that in memory. We present it in a very visual way so that the frontline fundraisers can access any of this. And we're not rolling it up. We're bringing in the gift transactions table at the transaction level. We're bringing in the entity table at the entity level. And so you can go from top-level views of it down to details and get a list out of this in literally just a few minutes, and it basically solves the cycle of pain. And the question we're going to look at in our first demo is a typical one in healthcare and not-for-profit fundraising. Is we had a 2010 benefit dinner. Who came, made a gift of at least $500 at that event, has not given since. So this is what a solution area we would call prospect identification. Here's just sort of from Baptist Health Foundation in Jacksonville, Florida. Prior to Advisor, we utilized prioritized prospect lists for our target programs, but they struggle to leverage data to drive action because of this cycle of pain problem. It's just hard to get at it. With Advisor's visual discovery and analysis, we can see and confirm that our operations are aligned with our best prospects, and it makes it really easy to answer these kinds of questions. So let's take a look. In this case, this would be an example of an Advisor project. It has a series of pages in it. This first page is called Household Mail List, so it's got some stats. This is disguised data, by the way, but there are 6 opportunity owners. There's 93,000 households who have made a gift. They made a total of 35 million in gifts. The total pool, this is just the donors, is 23,000 people or entities or organizations, entities. There's 18,000 households, and they come in a variety of different forms. There's a mail list here which has, we've hidden some of the detail, we've disguised it, but we've still hidden some of the addresses, but this actually has addresses, emails, and so forth. And then we got some stats down here, how many entities are in each household, do not call, and so forth. So this question, the dashboard of the project's arranged so that there's then pages on gift timing, gift segments, pledge details, volunteers, where people live, and so forth. So the workflow here is organized around topics or themes, and then each page has a series of charts that bring up the data relevant to that theme. So the first thing we need to do is find the households who attended the fall 2010 benefit, gave at least $500 at it, but haven't given since. So there's a page called Campaign. And on Campaign, there's a bar chart which has all of the gifts by campaign. In the annual 2010 benefit, if you put the mouse over it, shows that there were 501 donors who came to that benefit and made a gift, which represents 487 households. Visual discovery means you see patterns like this, and you actually see most of the gifts from all the different events that come in from these benefit dinners versus some of the other things that have been done. And if you click on the bar, it drops the data down, so you're just looking at that set of people. So over here, the stats have updated to the households. There's 487 households with 501 gifts, and here's a list of the households with from that benefit. We got $100,705. So we can get rid of the rest of the data and go to the next page, the giving segments page. So here there's some data on which this is something we calculate out of the gift transactions. Are the people who made these gifts 5-year consecutive donors, lapsed donors at this point, and so forth. But what we really want is the total giving out of that group. We've bucketed into $1 to $99, $100 to $500, $500 to $1,000, and so forth. So to grab the $500 plus donors, you sweep with the mouse over these 3 bars. It selects them, and then you see there's 88 households. The stat shows up here. Out of the 487 that we started with that are selected, and they've given $132,000. So let's get rid of everybody else. We've dropped down. We've zoomed in on these 88 households. We see some of them have been consistent donors. Some of them have now lapsed. So we probably are concerned a little bit about that. Let's go to the Chicago map page, and you can sort of see where that group is. There's a cluster up here in the northwest suburbs, Barrington and Lake Barrington, for those of you familiar with the Chicago area. There's a big pillar of them in Chicago, but we're doing a dinner in the northwest suburbs. So let's take the mouse and sweep over that group and drop in on them. So in that group, there's 11 households. Here they are, by the gift amounts they've made. Some substantial, 3,000, 1,700 donors, some smaller ones, all over 500, obviously, because that was the criteria we used. So we've got this list, which is a relevant group for this dinner. They came to the event. They've lapsed. I want to drill in. Here's the giving history. Only 2 have given since the event, and they've given relatively small amounts. So this is sort of concerning. We had this group come. They gave over $500. Since then, they've really not given more. So we want to now go back to the first page where there's the list of the 11, back to the first page, which has the mailing addresses and emails and so forth. And then we want to right-click. We can export that list out to Excel and go work with our dinner planner to make sure we get these people back and engaged into the discussion. And this is the kind of thing that literally, a session like this would take 5 to 10 minutes to do. You just run through. You can back up on your analysis and re-go at the questions. And you don't need to go back to IT. You don't need to cut the data. All of the Razor's Edge or the Salesforce or the Agilon, the Banner, whatever the data source system is in this thing. So you can go from the top down to the actual gift level details, get a clear action plan. And in these cases, you typically are able to re-engage with people. And in this example, which is disguised, a new large donor was found. I'm going to actually drop out of the PowerPoint and do one of these live in the software for a second. So here's the software version of what you've been seeing, the same layout. Let's say we're doing a dinner and we want to find, that last one was about a benefit, but let's see if we can find some lapsed donors. So the same idea, I'd go to the gift timing page first, maybe look around. So here's my whole group. And I actually probably need to think about, I'm having a dinner, do I want everybody? I've got a variety of different entity types in here. No, let's just drop down and click the individuals. It's actually the bulk of my group. It's 22,000 entities. It's 17,000 households. They've given 14 million out of my 35 million total. Just to go back, I started with everybody. When I put on one of these filters, all the stats drop down to show that list. The list is updated. The stats up here are updated. The gift timing's updated. So here's the giving history for my individuals. I can sort of see it's been a nice story growing over time. Number of gifts have grown up. 12 is partial year. Average gift size, there was some lumpy gifts at the beginning, but it's generally picked up. This is an overall very good story. And I can see that most of my gifts are coming in at the end of the year. This is a December 31st fiscal year end, October, November, December. The gift segments over here, We've actually taken the this is a Razor's Edge account. We've taken the gift transaction table, and we've looked at, have they given in each of the 5 last years. 242 of my base of households, 17,456, have been 5-year consecutive donors. 72 have been 4-year, 113 3-year, 258 2 years. There's a bunch of last year donors. Actually, I'm looking at this, out of my total household donors of 8,000, it's not a whole lot. I mean, I'm not sustaining people as an observation. A past donor in the last 5 years, this would be somebody who gave sometime in the last 5 years, but not last year. There's 3,000 of them. That's a pretty big number. This is a past donor over 5 years ago. This is somebody who gave more than 5 years ago, but not last year, but not in the last 5 years. That's 3,000. That's like a big chunk of my total household donors. I'm worried about that. Then here's the non-donors. So just at this level of visual discovery, looking at this client would be, we've got an awful lot of lapsed donors. And then so we could have a discussion here. Do we want to take the recently lapsed donors or the more lapsed donors? Let's grab this group first. They lapsed at least sometime in the last 5 years they've made a gift. So I select it. The brush up shows me that. And again, when I select, you see all the stats and all the charts highlight my selection. It's updated, and the coloring on the other charts is just for this selection. So I can now exclude everybody else, which basically takes out the gray. I'm down to just this selection. Looks like I've got a little bit of bad data where there's a couple of people who are maybe miscoded. But here's the bulk of the 3,481. I want to, and the reason is we just disguised the data, so we've got to clean up some of our demo data here. But the TLG by household, which is the total giving by household, so I'm most concerned about the lapsed donors who have given a gift or a total of at least $500. Or maybe it's $1,000. We're talking back and forth here for our dinner. Let's go $1,000 and up. There's 367 households who are a past donor in the last 5 years but didn't give last year, who have given at least $1,000 in total. Kind of here's the list of them all. Let's look at the map. So let's exclude everybody else. Where are they? And this is the Chicago area. Bunch in the city. Here's my northwest suburbs. If I circle that group, this is sort of towns up in the northwest Chicago suburbs. Boy, there's 38 households there who have lapsed and have given over $1,000. What if I'm doing something on the North Shore? It's sort of Highland Park, Winnetka. There's another 17 there. Let's go back over here. What if we grabbed, instead of that, we want to grab the, let's go back and grab a little bit lower down, grab the $500 and up. So we've done another selection because maybe I want to really invite more for my dinner. So now I've got 646 households who have lapsed and given at least $500. What do the northwest suburbs look like? 52. The north suburbs, 37. Not bad list. Let's do this group of 37 for the north suburbs. And by the way, the question might be, before we do that, where are these? Are they all in the Chicago area? We also have a U.S. map. Yeah, this is a heavily, it's a regional fundraiser, so it's heavily in the Chicago area. There's some on the West Coast, a couple out here, a couple in the LA area. I'm focused on lapsed donors. Looks like a couple in Florida, but we really need to focus on the Chicago area. So let's go back, grab my list. There's 39 of them. Go back to this page. Here's my list. I can right-click on this list, export. I'm going to put it on my desktop. And so we're out of Advisor. And here's a list with all the fields out of Advisor into Excel. And I could now take this to my event planner, and here's the list of the people to go to work on. I can mail out to them because I've got addresses and emails in here or whatever. But that's a great example of how we've taken something that typically a cycle of pain to do that, and we started looking at 1,000 and up, and we wanted a few more, so we dropped the criteria to 500 and up, and we kind of looked at the numbers, and then we kind of honed in on the list. And we could continue this because I've got volunteer, have they participated in volunteer events. Actually, it looks like we're not tracking a lot of it, or they're not. I mean, some have, but not that many. I could look at geographic details on a different way. So there's a lot of other things they can do. But the goal here is we pretty quickly took this, got it down to a list, and were able to take action on it. really in a collaborative way versus the cycle of pain. I think that's one of our main messages here is, instead of having this situation where the fundraisers are going back to other people to get the lists, they can sit in a room like this and do just what we did here. Work with the screens, visually explore the data, all the tables, all the details underneath it. So when you're done, you have the list of people, you have the list of gifts, or you have the stuff you need at the detail level where you can take action. And that's a lot of what we're doing in fundraising in general and in healthcare in particular, where there's enough just taking the giving detail and the geographic detail and some events participation. There's more than enough information there to create these kinds of segments and get these kinds of buckets and start mining the data. And our clients in this are researchers. They're heads of development. There's one example that comes to mind where the managing director is actually of the group is doing this kind of work, and she's not just a fundraiser, she's also operationally focused in the practice. But this has made it easy enough that she's seeing insights and she's getting strategy she can communicate out to the marketing and the people doing the mailings that make a lot of sense. There's a couple of other things we're doing. This is sort of applies to all fundraisers, small ones, middle-sized ones, larger ones. In the staff performance management area, we're doing quite a bit of work, heavily in the higher education space, but now some of the larger healthcare fundraisers are doing this as well, which is where you have major gift officers, and they're looking at prospect pools, and we're trying to understand how they're moving proposals along, who's moving them through rapidly, who's getting stuck in certain stages, are certain major gift officers maybe not asking enough relative to the rated value of their prospects, all of that. So this is an area we're doing a lot of work. This is a higher ed. William and Mary's done a bunch of work in this area. They see the strengths and weaknesses of the entire program, so they can see it from the top, but it's a quick drill down so you can get down to, major gift officer A is doing these things well, but he's struggling on some of these other things. So it really calls out the coaching points and the tool tips. And the idea here is managing to metrics, a handful of principles. There's operating plans. There's metrics like maybe numbers of prospects, number of proposals, numbers of visits. There's reviews, and the idea is to not just look at the numbers, but make sure the visits are focused on the top prospects with the proposals, which are in balance with the rating scores. And this is a data-driven approach. It requires review meetings, but if it's thought of as a coaching tool, we're getting really good acceptance with the management, development teams, and the field officers, because it's helping show them how they can perform better. And I think that's sort of the deal here. It has to be postured as a coaching tool in a way to call out best practices in a positive way. But when that happens, it really works well. There's a set of principles that sort of we've seen this apply, whether it's healthcare fundraising at this level, or it's higher ed, or it's philanthropic. Each development officer has a set of suspects, and also in industry. A consultative salesperson can kind of handle 100 to 150 active prospects, not a whole lot more than that. You're trying to get in 75 to 120 in-person visits a year, some a little higher, some a little lower, but those are sort of bounds that seem to be workable. The goal is to cull the prospect list down to about 25 active proposals, which is about what a consultative salesperson, a major gift officer, fundraiser can handle. Out of that, if you get a 2 to 3 close ratio, you're going to get 10 proposals closed per fiscal year per major gift officer, which is then the revenue target. And the other thing we often look at is this thing called the pool coverage ratio, which is the ask amount right relative to the rated value of the prospects. Because one officer, if he has all the high-rated prospects, a $10 million pool for him may not be enough, and maybe it should be $30 million. Whereas if somebody has lower-rated prospects, a $10 million pool could be great and right on. So part of this, it's not just the size of the pool; it's the size of the pool relative to the rated prospects. It's not just the numbers of in-person visits. It's are they being done in the right sequence with the prospects that are moving along well. I'm going to skip some of these slides and just show a quick example before we come to the last area, which is appeals targeting. So we're going to go back and we're going to open up an advisor project, another one. These are all files which get created overnight. This is called staff performance management. To run this, a user can, and a client, just click on a file, which could be on a file server, which would be regenerated out of the Razor's Edge or Salesforce or Agilon or Banner Data every night. It opens on my client. There's also a web version of this. But usually in healthcare fundraising, the teams aren't that big, so the client version is just easier to work with than putting this up and out on a server and a web interface. But we can run either way. What I'm going to do here would be identical. And so this is unloading the data into memory. This is a larger organization. It's 100,000 total entities. There's 9,795 assigned prospects. There are 1,209 proposals. There's a pool value, a total ask of $440 million. And then this is a page that looks at assignments and visits. And then there's other pages on prospect penetration, proposal pool. We'll look at a few of these pages. But what we've tried to do here is take information that's typically in a lot of reports. For example, this information typically exists. These are the staff officers. This is a larger team, 9,795 total prospects. Heather Ashford has 481, which is a lot. Nancy Barrios has 208. We can look at prospects by rating. Here's how they're arranged from the top rating, 50 million or more. And some of the healthcare organizations are up at this level. Others aren't, but this is sort of would adjust based on where you are. The lower levels here are, you can sort of see this percentages tend to be in the 250 to 500,000 range. 31% of the pool is 18, so it's skewed in this middle. And we look at penetration of the 9,795. How many have a proposal has been visited? 2.3%. How many have a proposal but haven't been visited? One step down, 10%. How many have been visited but don't have a proposal? 5%. How many have been contacted by somebody? At least 17%. Here's a huge group. 65% have no proposal, no contact in the last 12 months. So there's a problem with this overall pool jumps out. And we've got visits by staff. So typically this stuff will be arranged in a series of pages, often in a PDF or an Excel worksheet or in a reporting tool. What we've tried to do is put it all on one page frame so you can explore it. Like if you want to see Nancy Barrios, you click Nancy here. Her pool is shown here. So she's got 208 prospects. Here's the weighting of her pool. Here's her penetration. She's better than average. Her not proposal, not contacted is 39% versus the overall 64. Here's who's visited her prospects. She's made 35 visits to her prospects in the last 12 months, and we often use fiscal year and month to date as well, but last 12 months is sort of normalizes this. We find it's a nice measure to work with. But she's had some help from some others. So I can explore from a prospect basis. She's got a couple people she's visited, 5 times, 4 times. We might want to check the ones that have a proposal. So of her, she's got 29 prospects with a proposal. I can select that. It looks like there's been 15 of them that have been visited multiple times. Obviously, she's been making the visits. So I can explore Nancy just on this page. If I go back, one of the things that jumped out is some of these people have been visited a ton, 16, 17 times for them. I can sweep over them. What is that all about? Well, John Brown has 2 of them. There's 4 people. Gretchen's got 2 of them. They're high rated. 2 of them are 1 rating, 2 are 4 rated. That's good. Looks like 3 of them have been visited but don't have a proposal. So I can explore in from here on the other pages. There's also this data, we can show it visually. So here's a pool view. So this is a lot of people like to work with the tabular data, but this is showing it visually. So this would, the idea here is Nancy Barrios is this big green box. She's big because she's got a lot of ask out, 64 million. She's green because she's got a good ratio of the ask to the rated value of the prospects. So I can sort of see structurally I've got some real good performance. John Brown has a lot out there, but he's an orange color, and the scale down here is the coverage ratio of red is 0 and green is 3. John's coverage ratio is 0.63, the brush-up says. So he's got some challenges maybe getting the right amount of ask out, but he's got a lot out. I have some structural issues with these programs. In general, they're small and red. So they're not getting a lot of ask out, and they're coming out low relative to the rated value. This kind of goes with another page which looks at moves. So the better large campaign major giving fundraisers are also looking at moves through stages. So typically we like to see 5 stages. Some clients start with a lot more, some less, but the idea is you're moving them from qualification to close. And each circle here is a prospect. So here's a prospect, would be John Watt, handled by Gretchen Mayer. It's a $5 million ask. It got the pending close in 23 months. That's ahead of the overall curve. Down here I have a group of prospects in qualification that have been out there quite a while. So let's maybe grab the ones that have been in qualification, sweep over with the mouse, 7 or more months. There's a lot of them. There's 220 of them. They represent 143 million. That's a big chunk of my overall pool. I can go back to the page over here. So colored in now is where those proposals lie against my team, and it's not evenly distributed. Nancy's pretty good. She's got a few, but not many. Callie Goldman's got a ton. She's 85% of her pool is down there. So this starts letting me explore. I mean, for Callie, we need to do some coaching. Let's click her here and look at her her pool. She's colored against everything. They're all stuck down here. So Callie, we're going to have a conversation about her pool is not moving very well. But go back over here. John Brown, I remember, was orange, so he's got some ask level problems. But on the moves side, he's doing great. Look, he's got a couple of them up here that have come to pending close really quick. His pool is very different than Tallie's. So just by doing this, I kind of have my easy reporting on the first page. With these two pages, it lets me drill in on the gift officers. And then when I'm in meetings with them, I've got the coaching tips, because each of them have things they're doing well, and each of them have things they're struggling with, and it's getting that out on the table that makes all the difference. So that's an area we're doing a lot of work with the fundraisers who are focused more on major giving. And the last area I'm going to hit pretty quickly is appeals targeting. So we can take the mail messages and look at them relative to the emails and mail and all of those solicitations, to look at them relative to the giving levels. And we use Advisor to identify which types of messages connect with which groups of prospects. By rifle shooting, focusing on messaging, because some people are more interested in cancer treatment, some people are more interested in maybe neurology, some people are more interested in just general health care. By focusing the messaging, yields typically, we see average yields on these solicitations are in the 1.5% to 2%. By focusing, we can get them up to the 5, 7, 8% level. And there's just, here's a chart that just showed, it takes the, visually shows what you're seeing down here is, these are prospects, this is numbers of touches, so some people up in here have been touched. One time the target is, 8 to 12 times. There's a group of them down here that have been touched up to 25 times a year with solicitations. The red is email. So what's happening with this group is they start with blue, some letters, some light blue, some personalized letters, a bunch of phone calls, and they blast a lot of people with a ton of emails, and it's generally the non-donors who are getting overtouched. That's a bad scenario. And in fact, there's a group of programs that are yielding between 2 and over 2%. There's a group of programs that aren't, and it's 6 out of the 23 are yielding well. The rest aren't. And you can sort of see this heat map like the with the staff. The colored ones are the ones that are working. What visually stands out here is most of this is gray. 60 to 70% of these efforts are not producing at the right level. A handful of them are. You can actually see because the programs are much smaller. They're focused. These are much more focused messages. So this visually tells management, hey, we need to make some changes because a lot of this general messaging isn't working. When we do focus messaging, it works well. And there's obviously lots of activity at the end of the year. So in this case, the results tend to be improvement in yield, cut costs because you send less, avoid, I would use the word harassing prospects because there's fewer and better targeted appeals, identify high target prospects, and it creates a much more collaborative and integrated marketing team because you can have an easy discussion around the data. So just in summary, we're doing a lot of work leveraging data to help fundraisers manage their operations and their results better in 3 key areas. Finding prospects, we started at the beginning, which is this whole area in here. Managing staff, especially major giving staff, and then down in annual giving, appeals targeting, which is all the marketing messaging stuff. And we've our strength and our background has come from general data discovery and industry. I've been working in the fundraising arena for the last 3 or 4 years. We've had a high focus on higher education, but we're really now picking up a lot of momentum in healthcare and not-for-profit philanthropy. And what we're finding is in the healthcare field, if you compare it with higher ed, there's a lot less data on each prospect because you don't have the degrees, the undergraduate events and activities, and you don't have the same connection with people coming back for reunions. But at the end, you don't need all of that because the giving segment patterns tell you a lot. And if you track event attendance and you track, if you have newsletters, if you track click-throughs and what people are clicking through on, there's a bunch of opt-in engagement and interest areas there that are really important and really predictive that you all have the same way the higher ed, which has this other data, has. And we're finding that we can use this information to improve efficiency and effectiveness, and we can also become predictive on some of these patterns, or predictive of cultivating donors on a regular basis who can then step up and become a major donor. And so we're very excited about our growing work in the healthcare fundraising industry. So that concludes the formal part of the webinar. We have time for a few questions. The chat line at the bottom is the best way to get questions in, or you can also raise your hand. There's a and the GoToWebinar on the right, there's a facility, raise your hand. If you raise your hand, we can unmute you, and then you can talk live to us. Here's a question. The question is, how do you access the data? Good question. So when we build a project, like if you take the one I was working with, either one of these, here's the first one. Underneath this, there are a set of tables that we load from a database. The database can be Razor's Edge and SQL Server, or Razor's Edge and Oracle, or Salesforce.com, or Agilon, or whatever you have. If I go underneath this, I'm going to open the task view on the left. This is the kind of underneath this thing. There's something called a project workshop, which shows in this case there's 25 total tables. We've loaded 18. We've created some additional ones. So like if we want total giving and there's not total giving, we can take the gift transaction table and roll it up on the ID number and then sum the gifts and find the biggest and the smallest gift. That's how we did all those timing segments. We also do a bunch of calculations. And if I look, for example, at the tables in here, this is, I actually think this is loading from a Salesforce.com, but Razor's Edge looks similar. You can sort of see there's a list of all kinds of different tables in here. So we're very comfortable doing that. And then what happens is, to load a table, there's just a wizard. If I want to go load a new data source, I just click this. I would go in, same it's in a database. I load maybe SQL Server, where a lot of the Razor's Edge stuff, which is prevalent in the higher ed fundraising industry, is. I log on. And then if I don't have a SQL Server accessible right here, but this would let me then pull in an entire view or a set of tables. I can execute SQL command on the. I just normally though would bring in the Razor's Edge tables, and often it's bringing in 20 to 60 tables, and then we can in our back end here, get out of this. There's a set of things we do to link the tables for color and selection. This is where we create roll-ups and so forth. We can copy fields between tables. So in this project, you can sort of see there's been a lot of work done on the setup. And typically, if somebody engages with us, we'll do the setup. So we're a software company, but we're a full services here where we'll set the project up so the deliverable will be something like this, obviously tailored to your data, because your data is probably different than this. And we'll go all the way through training end users on how to use it to answer their key questions. And so like the scenarios we work through in this webinar, we would work through with our clients with the goal of having them do that, not us. Well, and the other part of that question is, I guess, a loaded question, is typically the way we load the data is a script kicks us off at 3 in the morning. It executes our file. So when you build one of these, the file can be saved in 2 forms. An ADV is the form of a file which has the data sources. So if you open one of these, it goes to the database, loads 30 SQL Server tables, rebuilds this thing with the updated data. And then there's a conversion tool that saves the project as an ADVM file format, which is what I opened with that staff performance management. It's a file that has all the data embedded and encrypted in it. So that's just a file. If you look at one, the one I opened earlier, this one, on my desktop, this is a file that is a 60 meg file, which would normally sit on a file server. The client users would just access it much like a large Excel spreadsheet. It's the same kind of an idea. It would load up in their laptop, put the data in memory. When they're done, the session flushes out. There's nothing left there. Much like with Excel, you could choose to save it locally, all of that. The web version would operate the same file, but the interface is a browser, Safari, Chrome, IE, Firefox, or soon iPad, where you can access this, without any software running locally. That was a long-winded answer to what seemed to be a simple question. Other questions? Let me go back over to the webinar. How long does it take to implement one of these? Good question. So when we put one of these in, we will quote a fixed price for delivery. It usually takes us, with a Razor's Edge database, 8 to 10 days to get one of these up and running. It's usually 3 to 4 days to untangle the databases because they tend to get customized. Unfortunately, it makes it a little harder. And then we've got to work through how you calculate giving. Everybody tends to do it a little differently. What are you doing with events? Often we find out, unfortunately, the events are entered as descriptive strings and there's no grouping to them. Obviously, for this kind of thing, we'd like to do some grouping. We can parse out keywords out of the descriptions, and usually there's stuff like that that we will work through so that you have data that's more amenable to this kind of slicing and dicing and then analysis than a list of like 800 events. So that stuff takes us, if it's 8 to 10 days to deliver a project, usually 6, 7 days, and then we usually do a 1 to 2 day training session on site where we work with the team going through the scenarios like we did, and then training at least somebody in how to author and update the project versus what we were doing here is running the projects. And that usually elapses out over 4 to 8 weeks. So it's 8 to 10 days of our time. We need some review cycles in there, so it typically takes 4 to 8 weeks. And we do not put load on IT to create customized tables. We will take the Razor's Edge tables or whatever you have as they are. If they're not flattened at all, that's okay. A little more work on our side. If they're flattened and somewhat denormalized, that makes life a little easier for us. But we effectively are in-memory data mart. And so all this stuff is just in memory on the machine, which gives you this quick flexibility. Question. Once data is updated and is interactive with the database being used to keep information up to date. Yeah, so once data is loaded, we load data generally. So the question is are we interactive with the data? No. Once we load the data, we're running in batch mode, and we're not touching the database until we're told to again. Typically, in fundraising, we update once a day, usually in the middle of the night. And there's 2 or 3 reasons for that. One is most people don't want the database being drawn from periodically during the day. The second is people generally want a snapshot, so somebody doesn't look at data at 9 in the morning and talk to their boss at 10 who looks at it and something has changed. That being said, we can load on demand. So the project, if the project is set as an ADV, you could just open and it'll go to the database right then and reload. So it sort of depends on how you want to use it, whether it is refreshed daily or refreshed on demand whenever the user starts it up. Here's a question. How hard is it to create a project? We're looking at a project here. So the idea is these are pages. If I want to add a page, let's add a page. I go up here to my task view. So when we build one of these, we have to load data, and we sort of looked at that. I have to then design pages. I add pages, add charts. I then do things to analyze data. I can build expressions. I can parse dates. I can set up hierarchies. I can export data. We saw that. I can export a page. I can publish this to our web version, which will then put it out on the web. If I want to add a page, I click here, Add New Page. I'm going to call it Webinar Page. So I get a new page. I can drag it somewhere. Let's drag it over to the beginning. So now it's the front of my dashboard. We can close this project workshop down. So I have a new page. I can add charts. Let's think what we want to put on it. We'll put a, how about a bar chart? So if I put a bar chart on the table, entities all, I think this is where I have the do not, let's put a do not call. There's a bunch of fields. Do not call. So it's going to put a field do not call. I'm going to flip it horizontally. And actually got the data filtered down. Let's bring everybody back. So I've started my page. It looks like I have looks like there's 17 do not calls. In that field, there's a bunch missing, and then there's a bunch false. So I don't have a lot of do not calls. Maybe I want to put a giving line on this page. So let's go over here. What is this chart? I'm just doing a little homework here. It's on gifts, hierarchical close date, and it's on gift amount. Okay, so I go over here. I want to put up a line chart on giving. I create a new line chart. I'm going to put it on gifts, which is a table we created out of the opportunity table. I'm going to put it on the field, hierarchy close date. And I'm going to then sum the gift amount. So here's a line chart of, I can adjust the titles later. That's fine for a room. Let's stick it like this. So if I want to see, what's up with the do not calls, looks like they're actually not donors. I can set the chart so I don't show the unselected. There's a couple of donors. They sure haven't given much. These guys have given all my money. So when the charts come up on the pages, they link to each other, even if they're on different tables, and this is how you get this incredible ability to kind of cross-tab things. And I could keep going, but the idea here, and this is a drill down, so if I want to see, this is fiscal year, this indicates that I can drill down to quarter, I can drill down to actual date, a month, and drill down to date. So this lets me go, up and down the stack here. And the idea here is it's all point and click. Once the data's in, I want to build a page. I go over here, add a page, add a couple of charts, and it's up and running. And I could keep going, but in the issue of time, I think that probably answered the question. How are we on other questions? I'd say that, we like to build the first project largely because of the data complexity in this area. Because if we go back to the back end here, and we typically are working with, a bunch of tables. So this project has 25 tables, 18 loaded. We created 7 more. That's actually fairly low. And most of our clients, that's a struggle to get this together. We've done this a lot of times, so we're pretty efficient. But once we get that done, it's very easy to build the pages. And our training, will teach your team how to do this. So if you want to add a page like this, it's a piece of cake. If you then go out and do wealth screening, and maybe you go to Wealth Engine, you get wealth screening for most of your prospects, and that's not in the Razor's Edge database. All I have to do is go here, load new data, go up here, maybe it's in Excel. I load my, I don't have, this is going to probably not work because I don't have wealth screen data, but I can go to my desktop, find an Excel sheet, mutual funds data, pretend it's wealth screening, go through here. It's got a couple of tables, sheets. I bring this sheet over. I click Next. I take a look at it. It sort of figures things out. I can look at the data view, what's in it. Okay, that makes sense. Click Next. Okay, so now my wealth screening data is loaded into the project. And all I have to do is go back to, I want to save it. I go back over here to my project workshop. I want to create a new link. So I go up here. I would link the selection link on the mutual funds data, which is now in here. Pretend this is like ID number. It's not. I'm going to link it to the central table, which I think is entities here on ID. There's not going to be a link, obviously, because it's totally unrelated data. But if I complete this, it's now created a link between those tables. So if I bring charts up on the mutual fund data, pretend it's the wealth screening data, I can now grab my high-scored prospects, and then much like when I click on this, the line chart is going to update for them. So literally, it's that easy. If you get new data and want to start working with it, you don't have to load in the database. It just has to be in one of the forms we can load from, which is pretty much everything, because we load text files, which is almost everything, Excel or Access, whatever it is. It's that easy to get it in. Then it becomes part of the project. And okay, so if you do that, and now I want to save this project where I've added a page, added new data, go up here, File, Save Project As. I can save it as an ADV or an ADVM. Let's just save it as an ADV to my desktop. Updated. Make sure I don't actually save it because I will trash something. that I want to keep updated. So now I have that files on my desktop. If I put that into production, what's going to happen is, and say it regenerates at 3 in the morning, 3 in the morning it's going to go load all the SQL Server data out of Razor's Edge. It's going to go grab that spreadsheet and rebuild these pages just as I've modified them, and that other data will, as long as it has network path to the spreadsheet, obviously when it tries to reload, that data will come in, this thing will regenerate. So that's sort of the deal there. Somebody asked, can this be deployed on the web? Sure. Let's do it. So here's my project. I've just modified it. It's kind of an ugly page. I'd probably clean up the things, but all I have to do is go down to Publish Dashboard. I'm going to publish this to the web server. I'm going to call it Test Remove, so we get rid of this at some point. And I can publish all the pages. This lets me give permission so the web users can get the project and work. If they want to work offline on an airplane, for example, they could download this to their client from the web server and go offline. This lets the data be exported. Let's do it. I'm going to embed the data, click through this, finding the server. I'm going to put it there. I can frame it in web pages. The navigation panes were help context that would normally be in one of these if you were going to do this officially. But this is going to send it up to our server farm. It may take a minute or two here, but it's going to return a URL, which then I can post in a portal, or I could email this out to a group and say, hey, check this out. What's really enlightening here is when I click true, I get giving I didn't expect. Other questions? We'll run over a little bit here. Thank you. Thank you. That's a question that just came in. So I think we're going to draw to a close. I thank all of you for your time and attention, and we have recorded this and we'll be putting this out in the next week or so once we get it up and on the website. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Take care. Have a good day.